few words about our lovely playwright, if I may. It's not often that we find a career that we can call our vocation that becomes very important to us. I think it's rarer still that we have a chance to develop a creative outlet that speaks to our cultural identity, that speaks to our hearts and our souls. And I think Mary Catherine is doubly, if not triply, fortunate in that regard. She's an accomplished playwright whose works have been performed in Los Angeles, New York, and Washington, D.C. She is a partner in the Pipestem law firm in Washington, D.C. that is presenting and presented by Cases for All Native American Issues. And she is also the executive director of the Yale Indigenous Performing Arts Program, and not the least of which, she is also the granddaughter of John Ridge, whose story we will soon be learning about today. Please welcome Mary Catherine Nagel.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here today. This play is the result of a lot of hard work and a lot of help from folks like Jenny Potter and Ann Schillinger, who have provided me with many resources and books and letters that my family has written. And I would just like to take a moment to acknowledge the other John Ridge descendants that we have here. Aubrey in the front row, and and her father Ridge, and my father Michael Nagel. And I also want to take a moment and acknowledge all of Henry Ukupaya's relatives and descendants who are here in the room. Kawanoi, Deborah Lee, and I think many others too as well. So if we can acknowledge all of them. This play, it tells the story of several different individuals whose lives intersected at different times here in Cornwall because of the Foreign Mission School. And so as we started this morning, this play is about continuing the story. It's about healing. It's about truth-telling. And it's about acknowledging what brought us together and what brings us together today. With that, I will say that yes, I am the playwright, but Kawanoi was incredibly helpful and provided a lot of the text that you will hear Henry Okupaya say in today's play. So please thank Kawanoi for all of her help. So this is truly a play that has many playwrights because any kind of artistic endeavor, if you're at all connected to anything higher and above, you realize that the words don't necessarily come from within. So I actually cannot take full credit for all of the brilliant things that Henry Okupaya, Elias Boudinot, and John Ridge said and did, as well as Harriet Gold and Sarah Bird Northrup. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our amazing stellar cast. And you should look for these folks because they're all very talented, and you're probably going to see them all on Broadway someday, including the distinguished gentleman in the middle. Who is just beginning his career. So we have over here, this is Crystal Arnett, and she is playing Harriet Gold. Stephen Flores is playing John Ridge. Benjamin Silliman Gray is playing many people, including John Northrup, William Wirt, President Andrew Jackson, the old gray-headed man, Reverend Timothy Stone, Reverend Schrimmerhorn, and Reverend Samuel Wooster.
Oh my God.
Jake Hart will be playing Henry Okupaya, as well as Elias Boudinot. And last but not least, Lauren Lewis will be playing my great-great-grandmother, Sarah Bird Northrup. So, without further ado, we present Return to Cornwall.
200 years.
200 years ago.
I was here.
I will never forget.
200 years ago.
I was asked to come.
Invited here today.
Share with you my story.
200 years ago. My story.
My story.
This is my story, where I attended the school.
Why I married him.
I was horrified.
I was in love.
Lonely.
I want to know.
All I could do was pray.
Will they ever know?
What's wrong with love?
I thought with your education,
What I know.
I could save my nation.
My people.
Their souls.
I was wrong,
We lost everything.
I was shunned.
Educated.
but disgrace
For marrying the man I love, Cornwall.
Cornwall.
So much of my life.
began in Cornwall.
Here is where I found my comfort.
Here is where I said goodbye to her.
Here is where I met him.
Here's where I fell in love.
Here is where I was married.
Here is where I died.
We came to learn about your culture.
Now I ask that you respect mine. A civil war broke out following the death of our old king, in a struggle for power between the chiefs. Leaving my parents and younger brother at the deadly hands of the new king's warriors, I began to think of leaving, to go to some other part of the globe, and did not care where I went. When I found some comfort more than to live there without my parents. Even my dearest grandmother asked me why I would leave with people I didn't know. My uncle, a high priest at our temple, trained me in long prayers, repeating them daily before sunrise and other times throughout the whole night. As I contemplated in prayer, I decided I would be okay if I never saw my relations in this world again. They have found me. Look, they are here. The grammar books, the Bible, the gospel of Christianity, the school, a place to study and learn. I didn't know if they would ever know. I had nothing and found something. And even if I never would see them again, they found me and know.
John Bridge enters.
We aren't that different, you and I.
Perhaps
We had Columbus.
we had Captain Cook.
The result was the same,
Everything we had ever known was no longer.
and the response wasn't peace,
It was death,
violence.
both internally and externally.
I came here to escape that violence.
To be educated.
I thought perhaps I could save my nation.
I think you still can.
I'm dead.
But your descendants are alive. They're sitting right here. Mine are too.
You had Captain Cook.
You had Columbus.
But after
200 years.
after all these years,
We are still here. Opukahai. Opukahia. That's how you say my name.
John Ridge sits in bed in his small room in the Northrup's home in Cornwall, Connecticut. He is ill and has lost the ability to walk. His crutches lean against the bed and he is reading by candlelight.
arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who was already sick and pale with grief, that thou, her maid, art far more fair than she.
Elias Goodnot enters carrying several books.
No need to kill the moon. It's just me.
I'm practicing.
Shakespeare?
Miss Northrop and I, we sometimes pass the time, reading Shakespeare. I'm practicing for when I read the speech in her presence.
Huh. We moved on to Cicero.
Already?
Teacher skipped ahead. Said Cicero is the most important of all the Roman philosophers, so we should study him first. You do your lessons for Latin? Let me know if you have any questions.
It's all pretty clear.
Have your lessons in French?
I already did them.
How is that possible?
Miss Northman brought them to me.
She spends a lot of time up here.
I worry I'm a burden to her parents. I require a good deal of help.
What'd the doctor say?
He doesn't know.
But he thinks you'll walk again.
He said I might never. I could die before returning home.
You can't think like that. Remember why we are here and what we're going to do when we return to our nation. You must think of something positive, something that inspires your body to heal.
Miss Northrup.
Elias brandishes the Bible in his hands.
Not now.
Professing your faith in the Christian church may make your love for the schoolmaster's daughter a bit more palatable.
you will never hear me profess a faith I do not possess.
Everyone keeps asking me, Elias, when will your cousin accept the Lord our Christ into his heart?
When they accept the Indian into theirs.
Sally, Sarah Bird Northrup, enters, carrying a bowl of soup.
Cook burnt the whole batch and I had to wait for her to make the next. I hate to make you wait.
When you're gone, I have nothing to look forward to.
I'll be leaving now.
Oh, my apologies.
Oh, don't apologize. Elias was on his way out. My day consists of 3 parts. Before you bring me soup, when you bring me soup, and after you brought me soup.
Oh, call me when you finish. Mother hates to find you with dirty dishes.
Oh, wait for me to finish and you can take them with you.
Oh, I have to sweep the kitchen.
Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon,
John.
who is already sick and pale with grief, that thou, her maid, art far more fair than she.
I have chores.
But be not her maid, since she is envious.
I have to go.
Her vestal livery is but sick and green, and none but fools do wear it. Cast it off.
John.
It is my lady. Oh, it is my love. Oh, that she knew she were.
We haven't finished Macbeth.
Let's finish Macbeth. Look at me, rushing to Romeo and Juliet.
I can't.
20 pages.
Mother would notice.
So what if she did?
I've been instructed not to read Shakespeare with you.
What's wrong with Shakespeare?
It's not Shakespeare that concerns her.
Sally!
Oh, I have to go.
5 pages.
Sally!
Tomorrow, I promise.
Sally! Sarah Bird Northrup!
Well, thank you for the soup, Miss North.
Call me Sally.
She speaks, yet she says nothing. What of that? I was invited here to read to you from my letters and many writings. It is true that I left here and returned home. I fought to save my nation. I wrote petitions that we filed in courts of law. I wrote speeches, essays, poems, anything I thought might convince Americans to spare my country from total destruction.
You have a letter.
She hands it to him.
Are you gonna open it?
Oh, yes. It's from my father.
Oh, what does he say? Oh, I'm sorry. How rude of me.
He leaves this month for Washington for meetings at the White House.
With the president?
Our leaders routinely meet with the President of the United States, the King of England, the King of France. Our relationship with the United States is sovereign to sovereign. Oh, he has a position for me. My father wants me to assist him as a speaker of our tribal council.
You're going home.
You thought I would stay?
No. I mean, yes. I guess I had thought maybe you would, but I realize now that makes no sense.
I graduate in June. We have 3 months together.
Mother asked me if I loved you.
What did you say?
I love the way you take your napkin and wipe the soup bowl dry. I think because you don't want me to spill soup on myself when I climb back down the stairs with your dishes. I love the little poems you write and drop on the floor when you miss the trash can from your bed, but when you're asleep, I pick them up and read them. I've read all of them. I love your words, your tenacity, your sovereignty.
Marry me.
My parents are sending me away to live with my grandma.
When they see us together, they'll understand.
I leave tomorrow.
Let me talk to your father.
I already asked him.
What did he say?
Sally!
The schoolmaster's daughter is not permitted to marry a savage.
Sally!
I have to go.
Sally!
I love you, John.
Elias enters.
I was also a student here at the Foreign Mission School. I am also Cherokee, but alas, I am no John Ridge. I'm just his cousin, Elias Boudinot, the guy who's not John Ridge. I was invited here today to read to you excerpts of my life. And the playwright, she told me I could share anything I like. Perhaps an article I penned for the paper I started back at home, the Cherokee Phoenix. Or one of the speeches I gave on why I knew we had to sign the treaty, why we had to agree to removal or we would be exterminated, removed from the face of this earth. But that's not what I want to share with you. I am going to read your words, the words you wrote about me 200 years ago, almost, when I married one of your daughters. Those words haunted me then, and I hope that by sharing them, they will cease to haunt me now. The conduct of this young Cherokee man, and the conduct of those who have been engaged in or accessory to this transaction, is criminal. It is an insult to the known feelings of the Christian community, sporting with the interests of this charitable institution. And outside of Cornwall, papers wrote, it appears that the orthodox fair ones at Cornwall have an overweening attachment to the Indian dandies. Educated at the mission school, their love-smitten hearts are probably overcome by their celestial charms, which their spiritual discovery in those tawny sons of the forest, and in a divine hallucination, they calculate on pure unearthly joys in the sanctified objects of their choice.
Harriet enters.
Do I possess celestial charms?
We need to hide.
I have nothing to hide. I love you, and we are to be married, just like John and Sarah.
My brother burned my effigy. Yours too.
He burned
Our bodies, or figures made to look like us, on the village green. The whole town gathered around to watch.
I will have a word with him immediately.
He plans to kill you.
You think Stephen would actually kill me?
My brother just publicly displayed the burning of my flesh. And smiled. Susan said he smiled.
Elias takes her in an embrace. Harriet exits and John Ridge joins Elias and they sit at Henry Ukubaya's grave. For a while they sit in silence.
I saw the burning. You know, on the village green.
Her brothers threatened to kill me.
Maybe you should go home.
And leave her here?
She'll be fine, but they'll kill you.
I love her. I can't leave her. Would you leave Sarah?
She's gone. Her father sent her away to live with her grandmother.
And save her from your savage arms.
When I left to come up north, I thought, finally, I will live somewhere where the white people around me won't want to kill me, or the nation I come from. I will live in a place where I will be respected, not regarded as a savage. But now I realize the only difference between here and Georgia is that the white folks here, we are just painful reminders of the extermination they thought they already accomplished.
Elias reads from the inscription on Henry's grave.
In memory of Henry Obakaya, a native of Hawaii. His arrival in this country gave rise to the Foreign Mission School, of which he was a worthy member. You know, I never met him. We got here too late after he died. But being here, I feel like I know him.
John also reads from Henry's gravestone.
He was once an idolater and was designed for a pagan priest. But by the grace of God and by the prayers and instructions of pious friends, he became a Christian.
Something you should consider doing.
I have no interest in their God.
Their God is no different than ours.
Their God says we're inferior.
They say we are inferior. Their God, our God, says we are not. We've never worshipped separate gods. That's a distinction they've created only to declare our inferiority. I think Henry understood that. I think to him, he never thought that he was praying to a new God. He knew what we will soon learn, what you will soon learn. We pray to the same God in a slightly different way.
Their way.
Their way so they won't kill you. And when you think about it, it's pretty smart.
Smart?
It's about acceptance.
You declared yourself a Christian, and they still won't accept you as the husband of one of their daughters.
Sally and John Northrop enter.
Your grandmother says you refuse to eat. She's gone to great lengths to make you comfortable in her home, but you refuse her every effort. I came all the way here to see to it that you shape up. This is your chance to redeem yourself. So what do you say? This is not the young woman your mother and I raised. You're smart. You're charming. You have your whole life ahead of you. But no gentleman is going to marry a woman who refuses to eat. Look at you. There's almost nothing left. What will you have to give? Talk to me, Sally. Do you want to come home? Then you know what you must do.
I must marry John.
God damn it! I'm a Christian man, and you're a Christian woman.
He graduated at the top of his class.
The finest education in the world will never change the blood that runs through his veins.
I love him.
You really want to spend the rest of your life with a savage?
I would rather die than live without him.
You've read too much Shakespeare. The boy is brilliant, I'll give you that. The finest student I've seen in the school, but he's sick. He's an invalid. You heard the doctor. He'll never walk again.
John can do anything he wants to. He could walk in here tomorrow if he decided to.
The day John Ridge walks into my home and asks for your hand will be the day that I bless your marriage with an Indian.
1824, Cornwall, Connecticut. Alone, Sally searches and speaks to her father off stage from the living room.
Do you remember where you left it? I can't seem to find it. I do recall you composing the letter, but I thought you gave it to Mother and asked her to send it. Perhaps we can ask her when she returns home. She went to visit Ethel, whose mother is quite ill, and she won't be home until late.
John Ridge enters, walking without crutches.
John.
She runs to embrace him. John Northrop enters.
Sarah Bird Norfolk, will you marry me?
Father, please, you said, you promised.
You have my permission.
Rocks hit the house.
A marriage bond is a bond between a woman and a man.
Another rock hits the house.
John, I realize you are a Cherokee.
Rocks hit the house.
But by marrying my daughter, by living with my family, you have come one of us.
Rocks hit the house.
Not everyone is as excited about your marriage as you are.
Screaming is heard.
Come, I arrange for you to escape in a carriage out back.
But our wedding ceremony.
Do you, Sally, take John to be your husband?
Rocks.
I do.
Do you, John, take Sally?
Rocks.
We need to formally exchange vows.
Rocks hit the house.
You need to move fast.
All exit as Henry enters.
We landed at New York and made our way to New Haven, home of the Yale College, where I met students belonging to that college. These students spoke of God more frequently than what I had heard before. I wished to hear more of God, but found no one to interpret for me. My language wasn't spoken in these lands. I was determined to learn English as I found myself on the steps of Yale, weeping. It was Mr. Edwin Dwight. He found me and sought comfort over me. He asked me, "Do you wish to learn?" I smiled, without hesitation, and returned the very next day to begin. That is where I was taken in by the Reverend Dr. Dwight, whom was the president of Yale College. I learned the first principles of Christianity and was introduced to Samuel Mills Jr., where I lived with him and his father, a reverend in Torringford. I found so much knowledge, moving me to continue schooling with my brother Samuel at the Andover Theological Seminary. This became the center of foreign mission training in New England. Those days and nights of long prayer at my home temple trained me to seek faith, not knowing at the time I would need to endure such a thing. When the ABCFM decided to establish the Foreign Mission School in Cornwall for students like me, I persevered through the most trying times, seeking the comfort I knew to be. I tried my best to understand the importance of agricultural labor as I excelled in my studies. In my faith, I took on a church membership where I would learn the gospel and someday preach among my people. I knew that I knew God.
Henry exits as Harriet and Elias enter. They read from letters that they wrote to each other.
Dear Elias,
Dear Harriet,
May 8th, 1825.
June 6, 1825.
I miss you.
How are things in Cornwall?
Back in Cherokee Nation, how do you fare?
Last week I published an essay
I was burned from the church choir.
advocating for the preservation of Cherokee Nation.
Because I love a man.
Think of you often.
Because I love you.
I miss your soft lips.
Your crisp, clean hands.
I wish I could hold you.
I fear you never will. Dear Elias.
Dear Harriet.
September 12th, 1825.
October 4th, 1825.
I miss you.
I went for a walk.
I watched the sun burn a hole on the horizon.
But you weren't there.
You couldn't see it.
Dear Harriet.
Dear Elias.
Will you marry me?
I thought you'd never ask.
But your family.
They will have to understand.
And if they don't?
I will never see them again.
Dear Harriet.
Dear Elias.
I am on my way.
Several years later, Cherokee Nation. John Ridge prepares for a trip to the United States Supreme Court.
She moved to Cherokee with me, came to live on our nation, and we built our lives together. By 1832, we had 4 children, but George's attempts to remove us from our homes increased and became more violent. Together, Elias and I worked with the principal chief, John Ross, to bring our case to the United States Supreme Court.
A visibly pregnant Sally enters carrying John's suit.
Are you nervous?
A bit.
You submitted a powerful brief.
Well, we took your edits.
I saw that.
You have an uncanny ability to take cluttered sentences and reorganize them in the most compelling fashion.
I just delete a few words here and there. You're too verbose, John Ridge. Sometimes less is more. Oh, I pressed your suit. The one your father bought you for graduation. I fixed the tear in the seam from your last trip to Washington. And please, John, watch what you put in your pockets. Pockets are for small items, like handkerchiefs or combs, a key or two.
Notes from your wife?
Notes from your wife, yes. But not rocks. You can't put rocks in your pocket, no matter how interesting they look when you find them on your path.
Well, what if I want to bring one home to you?
You're the most brilliant man I've ever met, but when it comes to common sense, Creator did not bless you.
What are we going to name him?
Him.
You're carrying a little boy. I can feel it.
You picked Clorinda.
And you picked Susan.
Yes, Susan was mine.
So it's my turn. How about Andrew Jackson?
That's not what I expected you to say.
Andrew Jackson is a name Americans respect. Our son Andrew could become the first Cherokee president of the United States.
To run for president, you must be a citizen of the United States.
You're a citizen. Our children will have dual citizenship.
I don't think that's how it works. There are a lot of mixed blood Indians who are not permitted to vote. But that's why you're doing this, John. That's why you're going to the Supreme Court for our children. They may not be American citizens, but they have the inalienable right to seek the protection of their government, their sovereign government, the Cherokee Nation.
You're going to be an incredible mother.
It's funny, growing up, I had this feeling I would never be one.
Something changed your mind?
I met you.
1832. Elias and John Ridge sit at a cafe in Washington, enjoying a meal several days after the oral argument in Worcester v. Georgia.
What do you order?
Hot cider.
Is it nice and warm? Like Sally's soup?
I refuse to dignify that with a response.
You know, we printed an article on cider, The Evolution of Cider, in the Phoenix.
What haven't you printed in the Phoenix?
The Supreme Court's decision in this case.
What do you think's taking so long?
I don't know. Maybe Marshall decided to write an opus.
Justice McLean invited me to visit.
Do you think that means they've made their decision?
If they have, he can't tell me about it before it's published. That would violate court rules. Well, Galagina.
No one calls me that anymore.
But we used to.
And I changed my name. Years ago. In Cornwall.
I never understood why.
Elias Boudinot was a lawyer and statesman. A delegate to the Continental Congress. He was president of the Congress from 1782 to 1783. He served as a U.S. congressman for New Jersey following the Revolutionary War. And then he was appointed by President George Washington to serve as director of the United States Mint. From 1795 until 1805.
You looked up to him.
He sponsored me.
I had a sponsor to go to that school, but I didn't take his name.
I'm proud of who I am. My parents named me Galageina Uwati. That will always be my name. But I stepped foot into the white world, and without a white name, I'm nobody. Just an Indian. No one listens to an Indian.
William Wirt enters.
We won!
What?
Decision issued this morning.
Oh my God!
We won!
Thank you!
Thank you both for all your work.
I can't believe it.
Georgia been ordered to release Worcester.
I've got to print this in the paper.
Now no one can deny our sovereignty.
No one can question our right to exist.
This is the president. We need to know what he will do to enforce the order.
1832. John Bridge approaches Andrew Jackson in the White House. At first, they acknowledge each other in silence. And then John Bridge reads from the copy of the decision he holds in his hands.
The Cherokee Nation then is a distinct community, occupying its own territory, with boundaries accurately described, in which the laws of Georgia can have no force. This is what your court has declared. Georgia has no jurisdiction over Cherokee lands. As I'm sure you're aware, Georgia has refused to release Reverend Worcester. They continue to force him to undertake hard labor, despite the court decision compelling his release. Even worse, Georgia has begun to survey our land. They created a lottery and they stand prepared to give away Cherokee lands to white settlers. I've read your Constitution. I understand its meaning. As the President, you are constitutionally required to enforce the law of this land, and the Supreme Court has declared the law. I'm not here to listen to myself speak.
John Marshall made his decision. Let him enforce it. I say this as your friend. You find yourself established in the midst of a superior race. And although you do not appreciate the cause of your inferiority, if you do not yield to the force and progress of civilization and move west, you will disappear.
Andrew Jackson exits. Cherokee Nation, 1832. Harriet, Elias, and Sally await John's return from visiting President Jackson. John Bridge enters.
There he is!
What a victory!
I've read the entire decision, every word.
Justice Marshall wrote a masterpiece.
He says he won't enforce it.
He has to.
He's the president.
And the Supreme Court is their highest court.
It's no use.
Did you visit our friends in Congress?
Congress will force him to follow the court.
I met with Marshall and McLean, our friends in Congress. I visit everyone we know in Washington. No one will defy the president. They all think we should sign the treaty and move west.
No, absolutely not. Tell them we say never. Unless... Is that what you think we should do?
I think we have no choice.
We just won the right to remain on our lands. And you're telling me we should just give up and agree to leave?
I think we should sign a treaty.
And sell our land?
What's more important? Our land or our sovereignty?
All exit as Henry enters.
One day, I had just returned from a visit to my friends. As I was walking through the woods, I came to a house which stood at some distance from the town. As soon as I was come near the house, I found an old gray-headed man.
Old gray-headed man enters.
I thought it was my duty to converse with him. How do you do?
Well.
Are you well within also? He did not understand. He was, after all, about 90 years old and had been living without God in the world, without hope. My friend, you are a stranger to me and I unto you. And I see that your hair is full of gray hairs, and no doubt your days will soon be over.
I know that.
What do you think of the great day of judgment? Are you ready for that day?
Old gray-headed man begins to walk away.
Why do you not now begin to make peace with God before death overtake you?
Old gray-headed man exits.
I followed him to the end of the field, pursuing my discourse, but he seemed unwilling to hear me any further. Without hope within, I knew that feeling, and I saw it in him. Cook arrived on our islands in 1778. The conflicts, the violence, our whole world was changing. I lost my parents. I lost my brother. I lost hope. But I found it here in Cornwall. I found it in the church, your church, and in your prayers. Listening to you pray to your God, somehow it made me feel safer about what I knew was to come. Foolish, you know. I thought at some point, if we could all pray to your God, you or they or whoever it was that wanted to take everything from us, would instead suddenly see us as their brothers and sisters. But on January 17th, 1893, 75 years after I expired here in Cornwall, Hawaii's monarchy was overthrown when a group of businessmen and sugar planters forced Queen Liliuokalani to abdicate. The coup led to the dissolving of the Kingdom of Hawaii 2 years later, its annexation as a U.S. territory, and the eventual admission of Hawaii as the 50th state in the Union. The rest, I guess, is history.
Nui Chota, Cherokee Nation, 1832. Elias, Harriet, and John Ridge sit at the Cherokee Phoenix office with papers stretched out before them.
A vote for John is spot on.
Which John?
Good point. In a time of crisis, we'll need a bridge. Vote for John Ridge.
Sovereignty first, John Ridge for chief.
That doesn't rhyme.
Does it need to?
Well, it's not a slogan unless it rhymes.
Like, he may look like a goat, but John Ridge deserves your vote.
Don't give John Ross your vote. He'll turn around and shove it down your throat.
That's a bit aggressive.
How about Ridge is a man who appreciates his soup. Vote for him or he'll make you smell his poop.
I need another column.
One column per candidate.
How am I supposed to explain my stance on removal with just one column?
Brevity is the soul of wit.
You never said what you think.
On the election?
On removal, do you really think we can survive as a nation if we stay?
I have come to the unpleasant and most disagreeable conclusion that our lands, or a large part of them, are about to be seized and taken from us. Now, as a friend of my people, I cannot say peace, when there is no peace. I cannot ease their minds with any expectation of a calm when the vessel is already tossed to and fro and threatened to be shattered to pieces by an approaching tempest. If I really believe there is danger, I must act consistently and give alarm. Tell our countrymen our true, or what I believe to be our true situation. In the case under consideration, I am induced to believe there is danger. Immediate and appalling, and it becomes the people of this country to weigh the matter rightly, act wisely, not rashly, and choose a course that will come nearest to benefiting the nation.
The next day, Sally approaches John Ridge in their home at Running Waters.
They killed someone from your party.
Who?
John Walker?
I was with him last night.
Foreman shot him on his way home from council. The Ross Party wants to murder you and every member of the Ridge Treaty Party.
This is one killing.
They're sending a message. Anyone who advocates for removal will be killed.
I'm more likely to be killed by a citizen of Georgia than one of Ross's crew.
Why don't we go away for a while? Give things a chance to calm down around here.
I can't leave. Sally, I know you want to go home.
Home?
To Cornwall.
I left Cornwall. For you. Everyone I knew growing up in Cornwall, they've all threatened to kill me. Or drown my mother. Because I married you. I can't go back to Cornwall. Cherokee Nation is my home, and you expect me to agree to leave it?
December 1835. Harriet enters and joins Sally.
Another letter from home.
How's your sister?
Oh, she had a girl.
Oh, wonderful.
Dark hair and blue eyes, says her eyes already sparkle and she hardly cries.
Your sister always had the nicest temperament. I'm sure she's a wonderful mother, like you.
We do our best.
How is Elias Cornelius?
Still with fever.
Andrew was sick 6 nights.
He just cries and cries.
Even when you walk him.
There's nothing I can do.
Make sure he drinks plenty of water and sit him as close to the fire as he can tolerate. He'll sweat it out.
My sister says your parents are well.
They've promised to visit.
Well, they better get here soon then. You know we're going to move.
I've heard talk of it.
I don't know how we could stay. Every day the state of Georgia takes another piece of land, a home, a life, and every day I hear about a killing, I race home terrified that it is one of my children. It's all Elias talks about, this treaty.
Well, they talk about treaties, but they'll never sign one.
Elias says they will.
He must not. Tell him he cannot.
He has to do what is best for his nation.
What about his family? Do you want your children to lose their father?
Sherman will arrive tonight.
Then the arrangements have been made.
I thought you knew.
John promised me he would talk to me before agreeing to sign any treaty. But when he woke up this morning, he wouldn't look at me. His eyes suggested... I don't know. I guess he's going to sign it. Do you regret marrying an Indian?
I look back on my wedding day with such pleasure, with gratitude. Yes, I am thankful. I remember the trials I had to encounter, the thorny path I had to tread, the bitter cup I had to drink. But a consciousness of doing right, a kind, affectionate, devoted husband, together with many other blessings, have made amends of all. Truly I have, ere this, entered upon the sober realities of married life. And if tears have been shed for me on that account, I can now pronounce them useless.
Henry enters as Harriet and Sally exit.
I loved writing letters. I wrote letters to anyone and everyone who would receive them. Cornwall, June 16th, 1817. My dear sir, again I take my pen to embrace this opportunity in writing. Indeed, on this very day I received a most affectionate letter. And when I came to unseal it, lo! It was from my dear friend, Mr. S.W. How or what answer can I give for it? My dear friend, I received your letter with a thankful heart. I rejoice to hear that you have still a lively thought concerning the great things of eternity.
Reverend Timothy Stone enters.
But I became sick. Quite sick. And then I was unable to put pen to paper. I could barely eat, let alone write. Does the doctor say I shall get well?
He thinks it's uncertain. You are right to depend on your physician, but do not forsake the physician of your soul.
I want to see how I eat. But I think I never shall. God will do right. He knows what is best.
December 1835. Sally and John Ridge sit by the fire in their home. John Ridge holds baby Flora in his arms.
By the time he finally made it back to Cherokee country, he was so tired he could barely lift his wings. They flapped clumsily and hit the soft ground, which made a big valley. And whenever his wings struck the earth and rose up again, mountains formed. When the animals above saw what was happening, they were afraid that the whole world would be nothing but mountains. They called, "Come back!" because the buzzard had searched everywhere for a place for the animals. Cherokee Nation remains full of mountains to this day.
We're going to need more firewood.
Father promised to bring some tomorrow.
I hope so, otherwise I'm not sure what we're going to do. Seems colder than usual this winter.
I'm heading over to Elias's home.
It's going to snow.
I have my coat.
Why don't you go tomorrow?
Shermerhorn's here. They're waiting for me.
John Ross said yes.
He said no.
So you're...
Going to sign without him. My father, Elias, Uncle, Ross's son, we have a group of 20 or so that have agreed to sign.
Don't go.
Sally,
Don't sign it.
I made up my mind.
Let your father, let your uncle, let the older men sign this treaty. You don't need to add your name to theirs.
What kind of leader advocates for the signing of a removal treaty and then when presented with quill and paper turns the other way?
A leader that is a husband and a father of 5 children who love and adore him.
You're asking me to choose between my family and my people.
I'm not asking.
And if I do?
I'll spend the rest of my life wishing you hadn't chosen your nation over me.
John Ridge hands baby Flora to Sally.
John, please. Please, John, I'm begging you, don't sign. Don't sign it, please.
He exits.
I'll never forgive you. John, I'll never ever forgive you.
Elias' home, New Echota, Cherokee Nation, December 29th, 1835. Reverend Schermerhorn enters and joins them. Elias and John Ridge carefully study the Treaty of New Echota laid out before them.
Jurisdiction?
Article 5.
The land ceded to the Cherokee Nation in the foregoing articles shall, in no further time without their consent, be included within the territorial limits or jurisdiction of any state or territory.
We'll maintain exclusive jurisdiction over our lands.
Yes.
We discussed the representative in Congress.
Article 7. Cherokee Nation shall be entitled to a delegate in the House of Representatives of the United States.
You think that's wise?
Wise?
To mix the two. Wouldn't it be best to keep both sovereigns separate?
Our sovereignty has been compromised by their disobedience of their own laws and constitution. If we are to survive, we need our own representative in their democratic process.
Sure it's cold out there. Maybe it'll be warmer where you go. I don't know. I've never been there. The government never sends me that way. They always send me here.
John Ridge and Elias reach agreement. They nod and begin to, one by one, sign the treaty.
Maybe you'll grow corn out there. I got to see your green corn dance. It's stunning. You know, I mean, that was really something. I can't say I fully understand it, but you've clearly got something special going on here.
Elias hands John Ridge the quill.
Just waiting for you, John.
John Ridge signs the treaty.
Feels good to finally get it signed, right? After all these years of negotiation? Must feel good just to get it done. Weight off your shoulders?
I just signed my death warrant.
I'll transport this to Washington.
The Reverend exits.
Who is there here that will not perish if this great nation may be saved?
John Ridge exits as Harriet enters.
You signed.
I did. I know what you're thinking.
I risked my life to marry you.
I hope you understand why I'm willing to risk mine.
My brain understands what my heart cannot comprehend.
Was it hard to leave Cornwall?
Not as hard as it's going to be to lose you.
She thought she'd lose me. Little did I know I'd lose her. 8 months later, her extreme bodily suffering, which continued to the last and which affected her mind towards the close, had not prevented her from saying many things she desired to say.
I have lived so unprofitably. I have done so little for Christ that I can hardly dare to hope that God will receive me into his glorious kingdom.
She told me she would die and prayed me to be faithful to our dear children.
Read the Bible. Pray with them daily. Teach them to keep the Sabbath.
She said to Mary, who stood at the head of the bed, sobbing,
You told me, Mary, that you wanted to be a Christian. Go on now. To your room. Pray for your mom.
The little girl retired, as requested. To William, she said,
I want you to be a good boy. Oh, be a good man when you are grown. Be kind to your little brothers.
and when her brother Stephen appeared,
Brother, I have but little time left in this world.
John and Sally arrived. On account of her sinking condition, she was able to say very little.
Harriet, I'm praying for you.
We're all praying for you.
To me, the loss is irreparable. Left as I am with 6 helpless children, at an age when they most need the care, instruction, and oversight of a mother. Please pray for me and my motherless children.
Your children are our children.
Come, let them stay at our house for the week.
They need to be with family.
In 1836, I lost my beloved wife and my beloved homeland. In 1836, we began to prepare for that long journey west to an unknown land. And I had to leave my Harriet behind. In her grave, far, far away from Cornwall, in Cherokee Nation.
1838. John Ridge arrives at the Hermitage. Andrew Jackson has 2 pies on the coffee table before him.
Can I offer you some pie?
I'm not hungry.
You to be hungry, traveling so far? How many days since you left Georgia?
I left Cherokee Nation the 1st of May.
Got apple? And pumpkin, take your pick.
There are thousands who refuse to leave. They have been informed of the treaty, but Ross has told them not to leave. He's told the entire nation that the treaty is illegitimate and the federal government will never require them to leave.
I prefer apple myself, never much like pumpkin.
I realize you're no longer in the White House, but perhaps you could speak to the current administration and impress upon them that the Cherokee cannot be forced to move at gunpoint. If the United States does that, there will be deaths.
This is my wife's recipe. Thank God she taught the help before she passed. You know what I'd like to do to continue with her apple pie. Losing her was bad enough. Now your wife is white, correct?
She is from Cornwall, Connecticut.
So your kids are half Cherokee.
My children are not fractions. They are citizens of a sovereign nation, Cherokee Nation.
Sometimes I have to wonder how many times you can cut a pie, an apple pie, before it's no longer an apple pie.
He cuts another piece of the apple pie.
I mean this piece here, this is apple pie.
He places the piece of apple pie in an empty spot where a piece of pumpkin pie had previously been cut and eaten.
But when I place it here, what's this? I think most people would say, this pie is pumpkin. There is, of course, a piece of apple, just a tiny sliver. A mere fraction. What would you say? Would you say this pie is apple? If I ate the whole pie, I'd hardly taste the apple. I only taste the pumpkin. Pretty soon there'll be nothing left of your race other than a handful of Americans who claim to be fractions of who they are. It's inevitable. Someday this country will lose its Indian flavor.
He takes a bite of pie. June 22nd, 1839, Cherokee Nation, what is present-day Oklahoma. In the middle of the night, John Ridge's not yet visible bloodied and bruised body lays on the ground. With a shovel in hand and a kerosene lamp to light the ground, Sally digs furiously. Samuel Wooster enters.
What are you doing out here?
I have to bury him.
John?
I have to bury him before they come back and kill all of us.
They killed John?
Dragged him out of bed this morning. 12 men. Stabbed him I don't know how many times. In our yard. In front of my children. I have children. 5 children hiding in the cellar because I'm scared they're going to come back and kill my babies. And where have you been? Where's Elias? Major Ridge? Why am I alone?
They're dead. They shot the major. He was riding horseback. They shot him as he crossed the creek into Cherokee Nation. And this morning, Elias and I were working on my roof. 2 full-bloods came up and asked Elias for medicine in Cherokee, so he got down off the roof to help them. And they took a hatchet to his head, cut his skull in 2. I saw it all from the roof.
My children, I have to get them out of here.
Where will you go?
Arkansas.
Leave now before dawn, so no one will see you.
Sally looks at John's body.
I'll make sure he's in the ground.
Will you mark his grave? Someday my children will come back. I want them to find him.
He nods. Sally kneels next to John's body. She kisses his forehead and presses her cheek to his bloodied face. Henry enters.
When almost prepared to return to his native isle to preach the gospel, God took him to himself. In his last sickness, he wept and prayed for Hawaii, but was submissive. He died without fear, and with a heavenly smile on his countenance and a glory in his soul. February 17th, 1818. It was a cold morning the day I passed, when I took the journey. I had hoped to return home to Hawaii, but soon realized that that was not the Creator's plan. I couldn't return, but you can, and I hope you will. 200 years ago, I came here on a mission.
200 years ago.
I was here.
I was here.
And I will never forget.
200 years ago.
I was asked to come.
Invited here today.
To share with you
My story.
200 years ago.
My story.
my story.
This is my story.
This is my story.
Why I attended the school.
Why I married him.
I was horrified.
I was in love.
Lonely.
I want to know.
All I could do was pray.
Will they ever know
What's wrong with love?
I thought with your education,
what I know?
I could save my nation.
My people.
Their souls.
I was wrong,
We lost everything.
I was shunned.
Educated.
but disgrace
For marrying the man I love.
Cornwall.
Cornwall.
So much of my life.
began in Cornwall.
Here is where I found my comfort.
Here is where I said goodbye to her.
Here is where I met him.
Here's where I fell in love.
Here is where I was married.
Here is where I died.
We came to learn about your culture.
Thank you for respecting mine.
Thank you for all that you gave me.
The blessings.
Gifts.
All of the lessons.
200 years later,
I come with gratitude.
with forgiveness,
With love.
I see my descendants
My descendants are here.
in Cornwall.
In
My-
Cornwall.
My life
And my death.
were not in vain.
The story continues.
With you,
The citizens of Cornwall.
the citizens of Cherokee Nation,
The native Hawaiians of Hawaii. We are still here.
The end. I hope you won't mind if you'll indulge me just for a second. I have a few gifts that I want to give. Just a few gifts. I just want to personally thank everyone who was in the play. Yes, this is just a small token of my gratitude. Oh shoot, okay. For coming. It was a long journey for all of them. They had to take several trains and they had to be picked up by people they'd never met before and stay in homes, very gracious hosts with people they'd never met before and, you know, do all these crazy things that I asked them to do. And so I'm just incredibly grateful to everything that they did to make this possible. So this is just a little token that you can take a little piece of Cherokee Nation home with you. So let's another round of applause for the amazing. Member in particular who is very special, who welcomed me back into the home of my grandparents. It was an incredible gift. And I have a tie from Cherokee Nation that has the syllabary on here. So when Elias would not left here and translated the Bible into Cherokee, these are the letters that went into that Bible, and now you have this as a tie. I would like to give this to you. I have a few more gifts. I would like to ask Amy Johnson to come up to be thanked. These are a pair of earrings made by a Cherokee woman named Drew Pratt. Actually, he could be a man. We don't know. But so here's a small gift to you from Cherokee Nation. Thank you so much. And I have a few more gifts. Okay.
There's probably a new car back there.
I would like to ask Pat and Jerry to come up. Pat and Jerry.
They're right up there.
And so Pat and Jerry graciously hosted Lauren and her family. So with much gratitude, these are made by a Cherokee artist named Tracy Rabbit, and they're 2 coffee mugs. So I just thank you so much for welcoming our family into your home.
Thank you.
So thank you.
50 years ago, Pat and I were here, and I don't think they gave me money. But anyway, thank you very much. And you have the greatest son. He's 2 years old, and he spent the whole day with our great-granddaughter yesterday, running around, chasing around, hugging each other. I don't know, they were doing everything. I mean, they were all over the place. Anyway, and it was great for us to have a young person with our granddaughter, who we have once a week, and so it was really fun. Enjoyed it. Like, good job, Dan.
And I'd like to ask Barbara and Mr. Barbara. They also graced, these 2 amazing people hosted Jake and Steven, and with much gratitude, I'm also giving you the same gift that I gave. So thank you so much for hosting. Okay, a couple more gifts. All right, so Paul, could you come up? Paul.
Yeah.
I would like to thank the church for hosting us in such an incredible church.
It's a Bible, you understand.
This is a copy of the New Testament translated into Cherokee, which is the translation that Elias Boudinot did after he left here. Yes, so you can read from the New Testament when you read the word of Jesus. Yes, I will be here.
Ask your help.
And I also want to give you, this is the Cherokee Nation has a youth choir that sings in Cherokee. And so here are some gospels, some songs in Cherokee for you.
Ann Chamberlain will be delighted to see this.
Yes.
I can tell you that.
Yes. So we have members of the Gold family here. The Gold. Hello. Yes. Please come up. I'm assuming we don't have any Northrops here. Any Northrops? Okay. So thank you so much for coming, and it's an honor to have the Gold family here. I have, this is the Cherokee Editor. It is a book of Elias Boudinot's writings. So one for you, and one for you as well, and a little token of Cherokee Nation. Here, it's a Cherokee Nation keychain. Wow. For you to take. Oh, sorry. To take home with you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. And Virginia Potter, Jenny Potter. I just also would really like to thank the Cornwall Historical Society for all that you've done to assist me in this research for writing my play. And so this is also a copy of the New Testament translated into Cherokee.
Thank you.
So that you can have that for the Historical Society.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Ann Schillinger.
Huh?
Ann Schillinger. Have we had something?
Is she here too?
Yeah, I think so.
Is Ann here?
Ann Schillinger?
No, she had to go.
I fear that she's not, but I do have something for her.
Great. She's worked very hard. Ann Schillinger has been devoting years of her reading and thinking and communicating with.
So this is made by a Cherokee artist, and it is the Lord's Prayer in Cherokee. So So I would like to give this to Ann Schillinger, and perhaps you could give that
I
to
definitely,
her.
I will certainly do that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you. Hugs.
Yes.
Okay. I'm almost done, I promise. I would like to ask the youngest descendant in the room, Aubrey, to come up to get a gift. It is a huge honor because, as we know, it's the next generation that carries on. So I hope someday when you are my age, maybe you'll write a play. What do you think of that?
Sounds good.
Does that sound good? This is a painting or a work of art that a Cherokee artist made, and it's a $20 bill of Andrew Jackson with the Trail of Tears painted on it. And so you can take this home and you can frame it and put it in your room. Yeah? Okay. And last but not least, again, it's such an honor to be here with Henry Okupaya's relatives. I'd like to ask Kawanoi and Auntie Deborah to come up. And anyone else who is a relative or a descendant of Henry, please come up and be honored.
I have my Auntie Cynthia here.
Yes.
She's of pure Hawaiian descent that carries on the same legacy of Henry Okupaya's evangelist churches that we developed in Hawaii.
And she's live streaming.
She's live streaming us here, and she's up above.
Everybody wave.
That's Auntie Lehua. Aloha.
Aloha.
So to Kawanoi, I'm giving a Cherokee artist painting of the Nunehi, and the Nunehi are the small people, and they're the little people who live in the river, and they help us. They guide us. Their spirit. Sometimes the Nunehi help me write plays. So since you are my creative inspiration, I am giving you this. So thank you. And to Auntie Deborah, and I have 3, so one is for you, and one is for you, and one is for you. And this is our Cherokee our national youth choir, and they sing Christian hymns, gospels, Amazing Grace in Cherokee. So that way, they have shared with us songs in Hawaii, in the Hawaiian language, and so I'd like to return that to you here. So thank you. And that concludes all of my gifts.
One more note is that Debbie is responsible for all these amazing Hawaiian flowers that are around the village. They've all come and been decorated in all the different important places.
So there is a reception. Please stick around. We have food. We have drinks, and that'll be in the parish house right back here.
We're not quite ready yet because I'm still here, but it's
Make your way slowly.
5 minutes.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Thank you all
Take
so
a nice
much.
5-minute walk around the church.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
And thanks everybody. Thanks everybody.